In the heart of a bustling city, nestled amidst towering skyscrapers, stood St. Jude's Hospital, a beacon of hope in the darkness. But within its hallowed halls, a sinister presence lurked, preying on those who dared to venture into its depths after the sun had set. Sarah, a young nurse with a penchant for adventure, found herself assigned to the night shift on the hospital's psychiatric ward. On her first night, she was greeted by the eerie silence that enveloped the corridors like a suffocating blanket. As she made her rounds, checking on the patients who tossed and turned in their beds, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The feeling only intensified as the night wore on, and Sarah found herself glancing over her shoulder at every shadow, every flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. But each time she turned, there was nothing there. Just the empty darkness staring back at her. It wasn't until the witching hour approached that Sarah's unease reached its peak. As she made her way down a dimly lit corridor, she heard a soft whisper echoing through the darkness. Frozen in place, she strained to make out the words, but they were lost in the labyrinth of shadows. Heart pounding, Sarah summoned every ounce of courage and pressed on, determined to uncover the source of the mysterious voice. But as she rounded a corner, she was met with a sight that chilled her to the bone. Standing at the end of the corridor was a figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. With a guttural growl, it lunged forward, its outstretched hands reaching for Sarah's throat. With a scream, Sarah stumbled backward, scrambling to escape the grasp of the creature that pursued her. Desperate, she fumbled for her radio, calling for help as she fled down the corridor, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the empty halls. But just as she reached the safety of the nurse's station, the pursuing figure vanished into thin air, leaving Sarah trembling in its wake. And as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that the watcher in the shadows still lingered, waiting for its next victim. In the quiet town of Hollow Grove, nestled amidst the rolling hills of the countryside, there stood a cemetery, a place of quiet reflection and eternal rest. But for the groundskeeper, Thomas, the cemetery held secrets far darker than any grave marker could convey. For years, Thomas had tended to the grounds, maintaining the pristine rows of headstones with care. But as the years passed, he began to notice strange occurrences. A flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye, whispers carried on the wind that spoke of things long forgotten. It wasn't until one fateful night that Thomas's worst fears were realized. As he made his rounds, checking on the newly dug graves that dotted the landscape, he'd heard a blood-curdling scream pierce the silence. Rushing to investigate, Thomas found himself face to face with a sight that would haunt him until his dying day. Hovering above one of the freshly filled graves was a spectral figure, its form twisted and contorted in agony. With a trembling hand, Thomas reached for his shovel, determined to put an end to the unearthly presence that defiled the sanctity of the cemetery. But as he swung the shovel with all his might, the figure vanished into thin air, leaving Thomas alone in the darkness. Terrified, Thomas fled the cemetery, vowing never to return to its haunted grounds. But even as he sought solace in the safety of his home, he couldn't escape the feeling that he was being watched, that the spirits of the dead still roamed the earth, searching for vengeance. In the heart of the countryside, shrouded by overgrown foliage and forgotten memories, stood the remnants of an abandoned asylum, a testament to a time long past. But within its decaying walls, a darkness lingered, a curse that defied explanation. For years, the asylum had stood as a blight on the landscape, its empty halls echoing with the tortured screams of the patients who had once called it home. But when a group of urban explorers stumbled upon its crumbling facade, they unwittingly unleashed a terror beyond comprehension. Among the group was Emma, a thrill-seeker with a fascination for the macabre. Ignoring the warnings of her companions, she ventured into the asylum's depths, eager to uncover its long-buried secrets. But as she explored the dilapidated corridors, Emma began to sense a malevolent presence lurking in the darkness. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, whispers echoed through the empty halls, and a sense of dread settled over her like a suffocating fog. It wasn't until Emma stumbled upon a hidden chamber deep within the asylum that the true horror of its curse was revealed. In the center of the chamber stood a grotesque altar, its surface slit with blood and gore. And kneeling before it was a figure cloaked in shadow, its eyes burning with unholy fire.